Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Cover One Roundup here live. Every week, it doesn't start in time, so I give half the intro and then let me restart. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Cover One Roundup here live on the Cover One YouTube channel each and every Monday night at 7 p.m. I am your host, Kyle Silagyi, joined this and every week by my co-host, David Fox. And ooh boy, do we have some content for you today. The 2022 NFL draft is in the books. That means the Buffalo Bills. I know, right? We don't have to talk about the draft anymore.
When did this happen? Why did no one tell me?
Right? Yeah, we weren't on. We weren't on a live show this weekend. We were on the
We were actually.
What day was it? The Saturday
Day
show.
Day 3.
I know I was unplanned. I don't know if you planned to be there.
I was incredibly unplanned. I woke up from a nap and Anthony messaged the group chat and said, "Hey, I gotta leave at 2:45. Get someone come in." I was like, I'll be on. I could do like an hour or so, and then an hour turned into 3 hours. So.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on being on, but then so I'm watching the draft like every other Bills fan is this weekend. Not necessarily day 3. Day 3 is even a little bit where it's just like this. It's do I need to watch them play Weezer, the Weezer concert over again? But,
even the NFL is just doing everything it can to keep people engaged. It's just like,
right.
Hey, what if we have like an orangutan like announce a pick or something?
Garbage Al writes, yo. Thanks for joining, Garbage Al.
We love you.
So the Bills pick punt god at pick whatever, and that's
all this podcast is going to be about. By the way,
this is going to be
the punter being
heavy punt god analysis.
In the sixth round.
I dove into the PFF stats for Matt Araiza today. That's how big of a punt god fan I am. I was looking at punter.
That's how deranged
punter.
You are.
I was looking at advanced punter metrics, and oh boy, are his metrics. Do they paint a picture? And you'll find out what kind of picture later, but you'll figure that out. So then I just jumped in the stream. I saw that you were there, David, and I was like, punt god, and you put it on screen. And
coming in with the most accurate take of draft weekend. The reliever that came in for the starter got shelved in the first, just throws the rest of a complete game. He's absolutely right. Mm-hmm. You are welcome. God, who was even on that stream? Anthony and Kevin, yeah.
Yep.
Although Kevin was on there for longer than I was, so shout out to Kevin.
Kevin took over as host. Yeah, shout out Kevin. And then Mike joined. I joined uninvited, unannounced. I just showed up and started spewing my punt god rhetoric, and everyone loved it. The ratings were off the roof. So we'll talk about punt god and the rest of the Buffalo Bills draft class today. That's what we're doing. If you couldn't tell, we're recapping the 2022 Buffalo Bills draft class. I personally will not be giving grades just because I personally don't like draft grades because, what has changed between now and last week regarding my view of a prospect besides the fact that they're now on a team. They're the same player they were. If I liked him a week ago, I still like him now. I'll give it a positive grade. If I didn't like the player a week ago, I don't like them now. I'll give it a negative grade. It's all subjective. But that being said, you can give them grades if you want, David. I really don't care. I just will not be giving grades. Are we just going to get into it? Is there any housekeeping here, or can we just talk about the Buffalo Bills draft class?
DeAndre Hopkins got suspended, so
for 6 games.
Has nothing to do with our podcast, but good for him. I got my Josh Allen jersey framed now,
looking good,
which has not shown up on this particular podcast before, and it makes me feel nice. So
it's looking good. Speaking of 6, Isaiah McKenzie changed his number to 6.
Did he really?
He did. There's a new 6 god, and his name is Isaiah McKenzie. Instant analysis of Isaiah McKenzie switching his number to 6. How will this impact the Bills' punt return game and also the slot receiver position?
Khalil Shakir, day 1 starter now. That's absurd. That's ridiculous.
Well, you're an anti-single digit guy, which is also absurd and ridiculous.
I'm anti-single digit, particularly for defensive players, because it looks stupid. And I watch a lot of Eagles games because my mom is an Eagles fan. She's from Philly. But I had to see their 2 corners, Steven Nelson wear number 3 and Darius Slay wear number 2, and it looked ridiculous. I'm sorry. It just no. Actually, never mind. I am not sorry. It looks ridiculous, and I will not apologize to anyone about it. That's ridiculous.
It looks good. It looks better than a corner wearing number 41. I mean, come on.
No.
That looks
Give
ridiculous.
me 41 every time of the day.
No, I don't need
care about
UDFA
that.
numbers out there. I don't need that. Give me a number 6 corner. Give me a number 2 corner.
Don't throw that slander on Marlon Humphrey. He wears 44.
It looks ridiculous. Figure it out.
It does not. You make it work. Alvin Kamara wears 41. He makes it work.
He's a running back. Aaron Rodgers has even said, like, if he sees, unknown corner wearing number 40 jot onto the field, he's like, okay, I know where I'm going. Like, that's...
Well, Aaron Rodgers can't beat the 49ers in the playoffs, so good for him, I guess.
This is real. This is going well. This is going real. Oh, God. Did number 19 go to Araiza? Did Pun God come in?
Yes,
already?
It did. Matt Araiza is wearing number 19.
I love it. I love Matt Araiza's just like, I'm the new face of the franchise. I'm the new favorite. I want number 19. You love to see it. That's incredible. Okay. So yeah, let's just get into the analysis here. The Buffalo Bills made 8 selections in the 2022 NFL draft. Some of them better than others, or some of them making more sense than others. My dog is going crazy in the background. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but if so, I apologize. But regardless, the Buffalo Bills on night 1 traded up 2 slots, giving up a 4th-round pick to move from spot 25 to 23. With that pick, they took who was, according to Brandon Beane, the last player with a first-round grade remaining on his board, and that was Florida cornerback Kaiir Elam. As you can see here in this expertly made graphic that I made, maybe maybe it was earlier, like I had this planned all day. Maybe it was 10 minutes ago. I guess we'll never know. But
who's to say?
Who's to say? Yes, as you can see here on the graphic, from Florida, 6'1", 191, relative athletic score of 8.64. If you don't know what relative athletic score, I know it's really gained steam in recent weeks. Kevin had the creator
talk
of
to Kevin and Mike. They
right, yeah.
They're all in on that.
They're big RAS guys, but it's just a good indicator of how athletic a player is relative to other players at his position. Just as the name would suggest, that's what it is. And then fun fact, he's first team all note taking, which we learned afterwards in a video that the Buffalo Bills put out of a brief video with an even briefer clip of Elam's combine visit with the Bills, in which he just pulled out a notebook, his playbook, and he's like, I take the best notes in the class. And it's like, Kaiir, have you seen everyone else's notebook? I don't know. I'd love to see it put up against Matt Araiza's notebook. That's all I'm saying. But Elam, obviously a culture fit, which Brandon Beane talked about. But before we talk about his character fit, his culture fit, let's talk about the player first. This is a player that I don't want to say Bills fans kind of wrote him off, but it was a player that not a lot of Bills fans were necessarily talking about, given the type of player he is and given the defense that the Buffalo Bills currently run. The Buffalo Bills play a lot of zone. This is a staple of a Sean McDermott defense, and they ran 57% of their defensive snaps last year were played, with zone coverage. So that this isn't new. This is something the Bills have been doing for a long time. Heavy zone coverage team. And Kaiir Elam, zone isn't necessarily the strongest part of his game. More of a man corner, more of a press man corner. Not saying he's necessarily bad in zone coverage, but those weren't his strengths, right? The pundits, analysts, guys like that were saying, he would really flourish if he went to a team that played heavy man coverage. And that's not what the Buffalo Bills do. So just from that point of view, and, guys like Andrew Booth were on the board, perceived better scheme fits. So a lot of people, I think, initially were not taken aback, but just a bit surprised that Elam was the pick. But then when you look at Elam as a player and you look at the type of athlete that he is, right? As we said, 8.65 RAS, 4.39 40, and just watching him, he's a great athlete. That athleticism shows up on film, on tape, on the field. We've talked about this, not we in particular, us, but the Cover One coverage, right? I know Anthony and Kendall did a great breakdown on Friday morning. It came out, a disguised coverage episode where they talked about Elam as a player, his areas of opportunity for growth, his strength, stuff like that. And one of the things they really talked about was this dude is fluid. For being a 6'1" corner with 30 whatever inch arms, he is a fluid corner. Like, given the size of him as a corner, you don't expect the type of athleticism, but he is a rather athletic guy. So obviously the Bills here, as they often do in the first round, they are taking not a gamble, but they're taking a swing on intangibles, on athleticism, looking at a young guy. Elam is 20, just as they've done in the past with guys like Josh Allen, Tremaine Edmonds, Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver, taking the not necessarily polished players, but guys with intangibles who they think they can coach up and get the most out of. Elam now being at a position where they typically do coach up and get the most out of guys. So they're looking at an athlete with tools, a toolsy guy, and saying we can make him into a good cornerback too, because that's all they need him to be, because they have Trey White locked up for a while yet. So, David, what was your initial reaction to the Elam pick? And now that it's had time to marinate for a bit, what are you thinking about Elam?
So when the pick was made, I was like, whatever. I was still, part of me was still hoping for Andrew Booth, because I thought that he was the better player overall. But it's pretty clear, based on where Andrew Booth ended up going, that the medicals were a legitimate concern. He ended up going 43 to the Vikings, and they ended up trading up for him. In totality, though, like, what we as Bills fans wanted was for them to, we've been wanting them to address the cornerback position for years now, where, they've been satisfied with having Levi Wallace be the guy because he was super cheap and like didn't have a lot of screw ups. He was athletically limited, and you saw that, but like he wasn't busting coverages. He wasn't like letting guys just run around free or whatever. He was a good player, but when it came time to pay him, it was like, I don't know if we're necessarily going to pay him. It's X amount of money. So then now they had a chance to upgrade, and they did. The fact is that like Kaiir Elam is a very good athlete. He ran a 4.39 40, if I remember correctly.
4.39 yes.
There's that memory. There we go.
And it's great because you can say he has 4.3 speed, even though it's literally a millisecond off of a 4.4. You can say he has 4.3 speed.
Don't worry about that. So the other thing, part of the reason why Elam kind of was sliding down people's boards was because of the way he performed this past season. He was playing through an injury. And the other thing, I don't know how many people on here that watch this podcast or watch the Bills in general watch a lot of college football, or if they watch, in particular SEC games, or are super connected. But like Florida was going through it last season. Like there was a lot of internal struggles with that team, and like not the least of which was head coach Dan Mullen's insistence on keeping Todd Grantham as the defensive coordinator, even though Todd Grantham is not good. And so I feel like Elam had his struggles because of those factors. And yet, in spite of that, when you look at that game against Alabama, that was sort of like the thing that everybody sort of pointed to when you looked at this season was, despite the struggles, he still is pretty much one of the only people that shut down Jameson Williams, who was unguardable against Georgia and that great defense. And that in itself is a testament to who he is as a player. Now, what is interesting that you brought up is the fact that he is more of that like press man sort of corner. And the interesting part of that, of course, is not just that McDermott and Frazier have been historically in Buffalo and in Carolina and in their other stops, Frazier being a defensive coordinator in Tampa and Minnesota, et cetera, et cetera. They're obviously zone heavy, but you suggested that this is, maybe we don't know what the fit is here, but the other corner that they took later in the 6th round, I believe, from Villanova, he's kind of that same way, a press man type of corner. So maybe this might signal a change in how they play defense moving forward. I'm not saying it is the case because, we're 4 months away from actual football.
Mm-hmm.
I just made myself sad. But I think it's possible because, like, when Trey White came out, he was one of those guys where it was like, he can play man, he can play zone, he can do whatever you want, basically. So to me, it kind of seems like they might be signaling a switch to more man coverage, which I think would be interesting. And for someone like Elam, assuming Elam stays healthy, which it sounds that the Bills obviously have a great medical staff and great facilities to work with. I would think that'll be the case, and if that happens, I think that this could end up being a really, really great pick for them. He was what, the 5th corner taken in this draft?
4th, I thought. Stingley, Gardner, McDuffie.
Okay, yeah, then he was 4th.
Yeah,
because because Booth ended up getting taken later. Yeah,
with that amazing podcast that the dude did on stage. Before he selected Andrew Booth.
Dude, I didn't even recognize who it was at first, and then when I saw it was the coach from Blue Mountain State, I was like,
Coach Marty Daniels.
God bless that
woman Castle to come out
for coming out in a purple dress too. Like, can we talk about this stage manager was wearing a purple dress when she had to come on stage for the only time she would be on stage during the Vikings pick, because she had to have known this New Jersey Italian dude was just gonna go on forever.
Here's an interesting comment here from Dwayne. Straight facts: you can play Elam against Hill in double coverage. They're gonna have to play Tyreek Hill twice now. Oh, they've been playing Tyreek Hill a lot recently, but now actually in double coverage, and single out Trey on the number 2 wide receiver on the other side, just because Elam has the speed to keep up. So this is something that's interesting with that 4.39 speed. Is Elam has speed, and again, it's something that shows up, right? You can tell that Kaiir Elam is fast on the field.
Yeah.
Again, and as Dwayne suggested, they're put a safety maybe over the top, but now you have the ability to, like, if Hill is breaking off a play, which he's done a couple times against the Bills, you're not out of it. Like, you have Kaiir Elam now, who has the ability to make up that speed. He has the speed to make it up and potentially take him down before the end zone. And there was another comment here that I wanted to talk about. Elam is way better than Levi. We'll wait and see, but like, I think that just speaks to the talent of the roster that the Bills, with their 1st round pick, could afford to replace the cornerback to potentially upgrade over Levi Wallace. Like, that is the strength of this roster, that they were able to do that with their 1st round pick. I do want to talk about the character here, because that is something that Bean talked about, was the character, was the type of person that he is. And again, I'm sure all of you guys saw it in that video that the Bills put out. And
if you haven't, go watch it. Because it's like a 25-30 second clip of him in that interview with the Combine. And it's it was pretty cool that he just had that ready to go, that it's like this thick notebook with all these notes, and he's like, I take notes about this, I take notes about what I need to improve, I take notes about big plays and explosive plays, because it's a copycat league. I'm just like, he had that already. Like, he knew what mattered.
Well, and Bean was on McAfee today. He's becoming a frequent guest on Pat McAfee's show, but it's great. But because Bean is, like, shockingly good at media. Like, if Brandon Bean ever, I hope he doesn't retire, but he's going to be an incredible, Apple or Google when they get in. He's going to be an incredible analyst for one of them. But no, so Bean was on McAfee, and he was saying that, like, he had to check to see if it was legit, because, like, obviously Elam could have just been told, like, oh, have a notebook ready with notes that you've taken, and, it might not be legit. But no, he did his homework, or Bean found out that no, he actually is this type of guy. He's meticulous, loves football, loves film, and, he's just that committed to self-improvement, which obviously must have been a big factor here in the Bills' decision to trade up and get their guys. So, again, and I said that he's more of a press man corner, but that's not necessarily to say that he's bad at zone coverage. So I don't look, I love Sean McDermott. I love Leslie Frazier, but they're both veterans. Do I think they're shifting from their bread and butter at this point? I mean, they're coming off of what the defense has been very good for a couple of years now, coming off being the number one defense in the NFL. Do I think they're shifting to a more man-heavy scheme or man-heavy in coverage team? I don't necessarily think so, but I do think that this gives them options. This just gives them week-to-week thing if they do want to be, in a more man-heavy or deploy a more man-heavy game plan one week, they have the ability to do that now because, again, White has the ability to do that and Elam has the ability to do that. This just gives them scheme versatility, I think, or some, ability to switch it up if they want to, but I don't know if it signals an overarching shift in philosophy. So, again, I think just to wrap up Elam analysis here, at the time it was like, maybe not the best pick, but I see why you made it. But after hearing Bean talk about him, hearing him ask for the playbook on the call in which he was drafted, him being like, put the playbook on the plane. Again, I'm sure that's exactly what they wanted to hear at that point. I'm sure that just confirmed everything they needed to know, or, they'd already made the pick. And then afterwards they were like, okay, we made the right decision here. So yeah, he has the athleticism, has the ability, has the drive, and given what this coaching staff has been able to do with defensive backs throughout their entire tenure here, I think we're going to be very happy with Kaiir Elam.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like I said earlier, it was sort of underwhelming when initially announced, but it became much more clear. Like, okay, this is essentially what we wanted them to do, was pick a high upside athletic corner. And that's what they did, and like, I understand, like, for me, I wanted Andrew Booth, but I mean, if the Bills say, look, this dude's medicals, and obviously they're not going to say anything official about that. But from what they did, the fact that they didn't take him, to me, kind of just seems like, and the fact that he didn't go in the first round, to me, says like there is an actual legitimate concern about his future concerning his medical problems. And if they're not willing to risk that, then I understand that, because you can't just sort of think blindly about that or ignore the risk unless your name is Trent Baalke, and then you can just do whatever the hell you want. But for Elam, he was somebody that started off really hot in his college career, kind of faded as it went on, but I think, like we talked about, he had his own injury issue his last year, and even in spite of that, pretty much the only guy who shut down Jamison Williams. Wow, almost forgot his name. Kept thinking of John Mechie. But yeah, I think he's going to be a very, very, very good player. And like I've always said on this podcast, unironically, actually, which is rare, if there's a corner or a defensive back in the NFL, they're gonna thrive with Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott. Like, they trust those two when it comes to defensive backs. If a defensive back can't make it through Buffalo without being like a legitimate player, then they're probably just not a good defensive back, unless their name is Lafayette Pitts.
I thank you for that caveat, because I was going to jump on that. John writes, Elam has no competition for CB2, Bean sign a vet. There's Dane Jackson, which I guess it's up to everyone's individual interpretation if he's a competition for CB2. I like Dane Jackson, but I do foresee, should Trey White be back, I think it's Elam and White week one. That being said, I wouldn't be surprised if they go out and sign a veteran. Joe Hayden, maybe, but regardless, I think you're probably looking at an Elam White week one, assuming White's healthy. I mean, maybe they like Hayden as an insurance policy, but I also think they think Dane Jackson is a fine enough insurance policy.
I agree.
So the Bills, they traded down. No, they traded up in round one, and then they traded down in round two, where they picked up running back James Cook. Let me pull up the graphic here. As you can see here, round two, pick 31, they got James Cook out of Georgia. 5'11", 199 pounds, 8.76 relative athletic score. Fun fact, may or may not know how to cook. We'll never know. We will never know if he knows how to cook. So But again, James Cook, this is a receiving back. That's my analysis, and that's everyone else's analysis because that's what he is. Maybe the best pure receiving back in the class. A receiving back is what I've wanted the Bills to have for a long time, because they've kind of been pretending that Devin Singletary is a receiving back for a long time, but that's not his game. That's not what he is. He's not great in the pass game, I don't think.
And that's fine. Like, that's fine because he's a good rusher and he's a very unique rusher. But like when you have the running back stable that they have, I mean, you got to have some sort of change up here. And I think they were hoping that Zach Moss was going to be that guy. At this point, I think they clearly don't think he is.
He's not, unfortunately.
He's just not, which is a shame because I like Zach Moss. But
we all did. But yeah, I there are numerous instances of me on this podcast saying Zach Moss is that guy. He is that guy. I think I was trying to convince myself more than anything. But he has shown flashes, but the consistency's not there, and it's just
right.
You cannot not add at running back because you have Zach Moss.
Exactly, and that's really it, right? It's like you can't let the hope of someone getting better keep you from getting like a legitimate player that you actually like, because hope is not a plan. You know, like actual football games are won with stronger foundations than hope. It's just that's how this works. Now with James Cook, I was a bit irked by this just because it felt like, and maybe I'm wrong, that they could have gotten him later in this draft. It felt like a bit of a reach. And maybe it wasn't based on how the NFL viewed James Cook. I think the other part of it was that I actually liked Rachaad White from Arizona State more than I did James Cook. I just felt like White was more of a complete player, where Cook at the moment is a little bit more one-dimensional as a receiver
he's
now. Yeah, but that's okay for right now, because what they need right now is a situational pass-catching running back. And that's what they were going to get when they signed J.D. McKissick. And unfortunately didn't get that. And they sort of got an insurance policy with Duke Johnson, who I also like. But I still think it's a bit of a reach. I do think that he will provide a legitimate, necessary contribution in the offense that has been lacking pretty much since Josh Allen has been there, honestly. They've never really had that receiving back ever, really. And you know, Josh Allen has been exceptional and wonderful and MVP caliber in spite of that. And I think that having that outlet underneath is going to be helpful for him. And it's just going to be helpful for the offense altogether, because now when you actually check it down to a running back, you're not getting like 1 or 2 yards out of it. You're getting 4, maybe 5 yards. And like, that seems slightly insignificant at first, but like, it matters. Like, the difference between 2nd and 8 versus 2nd and 5 matters a lot in terms of situational but play calling. And especially for a first year offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey, I think that matters a lot. That's sort of where I end up lying on this. It's just like, it feels like a bit of a reach. It'll still be fine just because of what he will be able to contribute in year one when you're trying to make a Super Bowl run in particular.
Jason writes here, Cook has more receiving yards than rushing yards, so he's not burned out on the ground yet. Going off of that, he doesn't have a lot of tread regardless. He didn't play all that much in college until his senior year, right? His snap count is shockingly low given a guy who played 4 years in college. So that's another, real feather in his cap or whatever. And regarding it being a reach here, Trey writes, he would have been gone by the 3rd. Again, this pick was in round 2, pick 31, so the second to last pick in the 2nd round. And then they're not on the clock again until pick 25 in the 3rd round, so pick 89. And then Garbage Al writes, consensus had him coming off around the 90s. I mean, if it's a reach, it's an understandable reach, right? Given James Cook, how he figures to fit in this offense. if you're going to reach on a guy like that, if you're afraid you're not going to get him, if he's not going to make it to your next pick at 89, I mean, this is a fine pick for me. And again, just to go over some of the numbers here, only one drop in his collegiate career on 74 targets, 728 yards on 113 attempts last year. That might have been receiving. I don't know. No, he had 274 receptions. Nope, that's wrong. 274 yards on 27 receptions. There we go. First try. Nailed it.
We got there
eventually. But I don't know. See, I made no reservations about it. I really didn't hide the fact that I liked Breece Hall coming into this draft. I think a lot of people like Breece Hall. The question was him at 25. There were no questions about the player. There were questions about the value. And with James Cook, he's not Breece Hall. He's not going to develop into a potential bell cow, but given how I think at his ceiling, right? I don't think James Cook is ever going to be a bell cow and every down back, one of the better running backs in the league. I think he's going to be a pass catching receiving back. I think he's going to be a very good receiving back who maybe gets some play in the slot, as people are talking about in the chat. I think that's a very real possibility. He's a fun, versatile piece, but I don't think he's ever RB1. I think he is a valuable part of a committee. But looking historically at what the Bills do with the running back position under Bean and McDermott, they like committees. That's pretty much what they do. They inherited Shady, and they got rid of Shady after 2 years, after not really having anything going on the ground. And they kind of shifted to a more committee approach, having Devin Singletary and Frank Gore, and then going with Singletary and Moss. Last year, Singletary, Moss, Breida. They don't want one bell cow, and we have to factor in Josh Allen and his prowess on the ground. I don't think they want a bell cow, a formidable number one running back. I just don't think that's how they want to play offensively. I think they want a number of guys who excel in different things in different areas. And that's how they're going to attack the running game, is just have a bunch of guys who can do different things well, as opposed to one guy who does everything well, which it makes sense. That is a sound roster building strategy, I guess, if you can get guys who excel in those things that you want to do. And James Cook is really the first, as you said, really the first good receiving back or receiving focused back that Josh Allen is going to play with. And I do think this is he's going to have a few big plays. People were saying in the chat that he's going to be a fan favorite. Would not be surprised if he ends up being a fan favorite, because again, potential home run threat, 4.42 speed. He's going to be a fun player.
Yeah, I think that he's going to be a genuine contributor in year one. I think that he will be just a solid player that they've needed for a while. I think that'll be what actually matters for right now. So I'm excited to see, because it's not just like him being able to take like a 5-yard or like a swing pass or like a short check down and make something out of that. It's like we've seen this dude like down the field making catches, which is what is actually more impressive than anything else. Like, he is a legit, when we say receiving back, we mean it, like receiving back. And they said as much at the press conference. They were like, we kind of see him as like a wide receiver type as well. Like so that's the role they see him in. I think that's going to open up a different element for this offense.
Right, and this is a guy that you can line up really anywhere you want. 37 snaps in the slot last year, 22 out wide. So this is, again, a fun pick. I understand, if you want to talk about value, if you want to talk about potential other running backs they could have gone after, but James Cook makes sense given what they want to do offensively. So good pick. I like the James Cook pick. That's why he was the thumbnail for this episode. And moving on to maybe my favorite pick of the draft, the pick that everyone was talking about. Everyone loved it. It's Terrel Bernard here in round 3, pick 25. Terrel Bernard, the linebacker out of Baylor, 6'1", 224, 888 RAS. That's good. That's why it's in green. And then fun fact, a widely beloved selection. Everyone was on Twitter talking about how great of a selection this was by Brandon Beane.
And everyone knew exactly who he was. There was definitely no one who thought, who is this dude from Baylor? and why are we taking him in the 3rd round? That definitely did not happen at any point at the end of the 3rd round when Terrel Bernard was selected, and definitely nobody on this podcast thought, oh my gosh, I still don't know his name, and it's Monday, and we're about to do a podcast, and I don't remember what this dude's name is. That definitely didn't happen.
It's
so
Terrel Bernard. Everyone knows.
I've got it now. I got it now.
Terrel.
Not that I didn't before. That's hearsay. That is
Garbage
hearsay.
Al writes our Milano spare. Exactly.
Okay, yeah. So
that is how I'm rationalizing.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Let's have discourse. Let's have discourse. So people talked. Kyle, as you may or may not know, Tremaine Edmonds is a slightly controversial player for Buffalo Bills fans to talk about.
It's his birthday today. He's no longer 23 in his 4th season.
That's right.
Happy birthday, Tremaine.
It is, in fact, Tremaine's birthday today. Happy birthday, Tremaine. There were some people, and I'm not going to pretend I know who or remember who, because it was from Friday night near midnight, and that was well past my normal bedtime because I am an old man. But there were people who said, wow, why would you take a 5'11" linebacker as your future Tremaine Edmonds replacement? To which I say, you're dumb and wrong.
It
is not the future Tremaine Edmonds replacement. If he is going to replace anyone, it would be Matt Milano. And I don't like saying that.
He's not going to.
And I don't think that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Not for this year.
I don't think Milano's still young. It has to be stated that Matt Milano has the world's least reliable hamstrings. I love Matt Milano. Think he's a great player. Just his hamstrings. He has 2 hamstring injuries a year. It's just people don't want to call him injury prone, but it's like, look, he misses games every year with most times hamstring injury. Sometimes he breaks his ankle or whatever. So that you can't.
Maybe it's only 1 or 2 games a year, but like when you're an important part of the defense, like Matt Milano is, like that matters.
Mm-hmm.
So having Terrel Bernard on your team as somebody who can do a lot of different things, because he used to be a safety, if I remember correctly, right?
No. What I think Spector used to be a safety. I don't know if Bernard was a safety.
Okay. Well, then disregard that particular point until we can confirm whether or not that's accurate. But regardless, like he has coverage ability. Like we know that. And we know that he's explosive, or at least from what I've seen from people online. I had no idea who this dude was. In fact, when I saw the name, I was like, what is a Terrel Bernard? What's going on here? I don't even why, what, and why. But from people that I have seen, he was somebody that was not poorly rated. This was not a reach. I think that was sort of the initial thought was I've never heard of this person, therefore he's definitely a reach. A lot of people kind of viewed him as a top 100 type of player, which was encouraging to see. When I saw that, I was like, okay, I feel slightly better about this. But overall, he was. I don't necessarily understand this pick for this year outside of what we've already said in that he might be able to replace Milano for the game or two that he will inevitably miss this year. I don't really get it for this year. And if you're not planning on replacing Milano beyond 2022, if you're really not planning on offloading him to some other team for picks or whatever, I don't really get this pick then. I don't really get it.
So I do believe Brandon Beane said after the draft something along the lines of now I'm happy with my linebacker depth. So obviously coming into the draft, he was not happy with having the linebacker depth chart looking like Tremaine Edmonds, Matt Milano, and then Tyrell Dodson, Andre Smith, Joe Giles Harris, which I'm not necessarily over the moon with that either.
Yeah, like
that is
that's
a room,
understandable. Yeah,
but like value given the state of the linebacker position, it does just seem a bit weird, which I think is why a lot of people are a little bit confused by the pick. People in the chat are talking about him potentially going back to safety. I don't think so.
Happening.
I think, and again, I think Dwayne is bringing up points about 4-3 potentially coming back. Maybe they do play a little more 4-3. They do need a third linebacker with AJ Klein gone. With them releasing AJ Klein, they needed a potential third linebacker if they do want to play more base 4-3. They needed another guy who can come in and play alongside Edmonds and Milano. I don't necessarily think they don't have to play much 4-3, and it would still be more 4-3. I think they played like 90% of their snaps in nickel last year. So even if it's just a 10% shift, you are still, even if it's 80-20 nickel to 4-3, you're still on the field with three linebackers a lot more often. So I don't necessarily hate the pick, but I don't love the pick either. And again, it's a character fit, right? He's a character guy described as a film junkie. So it's just something that you can see why the Bills would like the player, and you can see why, if they do want to shift to more 4-3, they do need more depth at linebacker. 888 Ras, he's a good athlete. And given Milano's injury history, if you want, an insurance policy there, that helps me rationalize the pick a bit, but I'm not over the moon about it still.
Yeah. And we know, or at least some know, that Dave Aranda, who is the head coach at Baylor, is definitely somebody that Sean McDermott is very close to, and in that sort of quote unquote inner circle of people that Sean McDermott really values and trusts. And I'm sure that Aranda really sold him on Bernard, or at the very least sort of confirmed the stuff that they saw on film. And Aranda is a extremely well-respected coach, and for very good reason. They won the Big 12 for a reason. And I don't know if you remember that game, the Big 12 championship, where Oklahoma State got stopped on the 1 yard line on 4th and goal, and the running back missed the dive for the pylon by inches. And there's a camera on Dave Aranda, and everyone else on Baylor's sideline is freaking out because it's one of the most incredible effort plays by a defensive player you'll ever see. And he is as stone cold faced as if nothing happened in the last 30 seconds that could have possibly changed his life. Nothing happened. He was just all right, whatever, move on. We're on the next play. Even Belichick's not like that. Dave Aranda is a true robot. It's just weird to watch.
From the McDermott school of no emotions.
100%.
McDermott gets emotional sometimes, though. He lets it go sometimes. Sometimes he gets blood on the hoodie against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
That's right.
Garbage ale again. Just talking about Bernard's special teams ability and potentially Benford and Spector as well. Yeah, again, that's another thing. They value special teams, and Bernard, I think, for all intents and purposes, is going to be a good special teamer. So, again, Milano spare, guy who maybe allows you to play a bit more 4-3 and special teamer, great, awesome. In round 3, when guys like Parham are still on the board, I don't know. I'm not overly sold, I guess. I've said that a couple times, but that's kind of where I'll wrap up my thoughts on Terrel Bernard. Or Bernard. That's what it is. Not bad, not good. So are we good to move on here to my unironic favorite pick of the draft?
Go for it.
Okay. This is a pick that the Bills could have made at pick 25 in round 3, and I would have been cool with it. I am ecstatic with it. And in round 5, pick 5, 148 overall, that's Khalil Shakir, wide receiver out of Boise State. As you can see here, 6 foot, 196, 8.32 relative athletic score, Fun fact, nobody knows why he was there. Nobody knows. This is a guy who was a late riser. We did a mock draft last week with Kevin, and Kevin said that he had seen Khalil Shakir mock to the Bills in the first, which to that I was like, nah,
that's high. That's a lot.
That's a little high. But in the fifth, that's great value. It's great value. Again, looking at his stats here, 2021, 77 receptions for 1,117 yards, 7 touchdowns, 10 drops. But just watching some Khalil Shakir today, I'm not comparing him to Gabriel Davis because they are nothing alike, very different players. But you know how Gabriel Davis, like every week, will make 1 or 2 catches along the sideline where it's just like, oh my God, that might be the greatest catch I've ever seen. How did he make that catch? And then you forget about it because he does it again 20 minutes later. Shakir does that over the middle of the field. He will just run into to coverage into like 2 guys. And it's like, oh, that's not great ball placement. I don't see how he's coming down with this ball. And then he does. And it's just like, oh my God, he's a great player. He's got some good, highlight reel plays as well, where he, goes up with one hand, comes down with it. Versatile. He was a direct snap guy sometimes at Boise, end arounds, all that fun stuff. Long term, I think he is a slot receiver. I think he is the long-term developmental slot guy in Buffalo. I think 100%. Jamison Crowder has that locked up for this year, but long term, they have a guy here in Khalil Shakir. They have a guy who's going to be a Buffalo Bill for a long time, in my opinion. And to get him in the 5th round is just, again, incredible value. He can have immediate impact as a returner as well. Did some returning in Boise State. And then that gets him on the game day active roster, assuming he wins that returner job. And then if he's on the game day active roster, you can do some fun gadget stuff with him immediately before he becomes the actual slot receiver in 2023 and beyond. So, and again, we've said this with every guy. He's a character guy. His effort shows up on the field. Incredible effort on the field. And again, from what everyone's saying off the field or about him off the field, he is just as high as a character player off the field. Loves football, loves the game. High character dude. So I am legitimately over the moon about this pick.
Yeah, when that pick came through, I was like, how is he still available? Like, I swear, it was like when the 4th round started, I was like, wait, when did Darian Kennard get picked? Did he get picked yet? Is he still available? Why is he still available? And that's how I felt when Khalil Shakir got picked. I was like, how is he still available? This was such a great pick. It really was. Just everything you said is totally on point. He is somebody that, like, long term is going to be the future slot guy. Like, and honestly, like, Jamison Crowder has missed games before. It would not surprise me if Khalil Shakir gets called up and put into action with a legitimate role sometime this season. He's a good player. Like, this is such great value. And not only can he have an immediate impact, but like, there's no pressure for him to do anything this year other than just like be the extra guy, essentially. And that's fine, because he will need some extra work just to sort of refine his game. And I think that Chad Hall is going to be somebody that gets a lot out of him. I really love this pick. This is just such a great value pick. And the week leading before our second mock draft, I was on here with Mike Bunt, and we talked, dream and nightmare scenarios. My nightmare was that they wouldn't address the wide receiver position, and getting into the 5th round, I was like, oh God, we might have missed the boat here. This might be it. And then they take Khalil Shakir, and I was like, oh yes, that's what I'm looking for. This is great. So this really was just absolutely a slam dunk. Great pick for the Bills at this point. It was just so perfect. Fits exactly what they need. It affects things right now. It affects things long term, and just super cheap, right? Like a 5th round pick, you're being paid basically next to nothing, relatively speaking, in terms of NFL contracts. they're still going to make way more than I make in a lifetime. But it was seriously just like so great to see that pick. It's really just, it might honestly end up being the best pick in this draft. Like him and Kaiir Elam will probably end up being the best picks in this draft class for the Bills. Just both start with letter K, by the way.
So
Unusual.
That's why this is the best Bills podcast. So
that's right. That's right.
But again, as people are alluding to in the chat, had this been the pick in round 3, you would not have heard a complaint about me. I would not have come on here and talked about value. I would have been like, oh no, Khalil Shakir in round 3, cool. That's a good pick.
Yeah.
Again, round 5. The only thing is, like, I really don't know if he gets on the field this year, just given that the Bills are loaded at wide receiver with Diggs, Davis, Crowder. McKenzie, is probably still the primary gadget guy, but you can do some fun stuff with Shakir.
If he is the player that we think he is, he will find a way onto the field this year. And regardless of that, the injuries happen. And they might not happen as much to the Bills as they have with other teams, but they do happen. And it's more than possible that somebody like Isaiah McKenzie or Jameson Crowder does get hurt at some point. And now you have someone that's like, hey, our offense doesn't go to crap just because, one of our receivers got hurt. That's the point of depth. That's why you take a receiver in the 5th round. So you have something there that you feel at least somewhat confident about.
We are really hyping him up here. Like
we are. I mean,
he's not a perfect player, as Davis writes here. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but he was still there because of short arms and a good amount of concentration drops. Again, 10 drops, 11.5 drop percentage. That's not great, but again, to get that in the 5th round, to get a player with his potential upside, with his talent, with his character in round 5. It's good. I like this pick a real lot. Again, my favorite pick in this draft with value considered, position, role, all that. My favorite pick in the draft. A close second, probably. I should have had it queued up, but I didn't. Matt Araiza, ball kick deity, punt god coming to Buffalo. David, we did a mock draft a couple weeks ago, our first mock draft, where I said every team thinks they're getting punt god, but the Bills are getting punt god. And look what happened. Again, out of San Diego State, 6'1", 200 pounds, 9'4'9". RAS. He's maybe one of the most athletic punters of all time. Maybe.
Which definitely matters to that position, right? Like you definitely care about
you want athletes
that your punter is running.
Well, he covers his own kicks. Like that's the thing. People are like, oh, he outkicks his coverage. It's like, well, he's an athlete. He covers his own kicks. He'll beat his guys down there. He can do it.
I did like the pick, obviously. I mean, I was gonna be totally fine if they took pretty much any punter in this draft. And the freaking the Ravens took Jordan Stout in the 4th round. And then the Bucks took the Georgia punter also in the 4th round. And I was just like, you stop taking punters. Because now someone's going to panic and someone's going to take another punter. Maybe Araiza. But nobody did. And so the Bills got into the 6th round, thankfully. And they were able to get a guy that is going to compete with and probably take the job from Matt Hawk. And I'm totally okay with that. Now, of course, as many people pointed out, including myself, punt god doesn't really matter if he's also not hold god. Because that was pretty much the main reason why the Bills brought in Matt Hawk last year, and the main reason why they didn't, cut him and move on sometime after the 3rd or 4th shank that he had. But I do think that he has a chance to really become a special player, which is a very unusual and weird thing to say,
if you will,
which is apparently a nickname that he doesn't even really like. So
too bad. Sorry.
Too bad.
Sorry. You don't get to decide. If someone gives you the nickname Punt God, it's your nickname. You have no say in the matter.
However, I mean, to me, and I said this on the day 3 coverage, that this is sort of just emblematic of how the Bills draft. I mean, this is their draft philosophy, right? They take super talented guys who may not be super refined, and they just do whatever they want with them. That's how you end up with Josh Allen and Tremaine Edmonds and Ed Oliver and Greg Rousseau. These are the types of guys that they want, that they like. They want to be able to mold them into the player that they want them to be. And not every NFL team does that. A lot of NFL teams are too focused on, like, all right, who's ready to play right now? Who is like a good fit for our scheme, et cetera, et cetera. And like all that stuff matters. Like scheme fit obviously matters. We've talked about that before. But it also matters to have coaches that are willing to, coach players and develop them. Not every team does that. And so I really like this pick in that regard, that this, even down to their punters, they are so beholden to how they do things, that there is a genuine system, and they're like, listen, he might not be the most refined and perfect punter, but we think we can do something with that regardless. And I'm excited. I am excited for as Joe Biscaglia often puts it, Puntapalooza during training camp. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Do you want to hear some punt god stats?
Let's do it.
I don't know how much of a I just stuttered all over my words. How much of a football sicko you are. I don't know if these stats are going to get you going like they get me going. But okay, it also needs to be stated that he's not going to punt much because the Bills have Josh Allen. So Matt Araiza,
that's a dumb argument. That's a dumb argument, but whatever.
The Bills, they don't punt a lot objectively.
And when you do punt, it should matter.
No, it does. I'm just saying you're not going to see a lot of Matt Araiza is what I'm trying to say here. Okay, so here's some Matt Araiza stats per Pro Football Focus. Average punt length of 50.5 yards. That is second in the NCAA, first amongst punters with 40 or more punts. Longs last year of 86, 81, 79, 77, and 72. Those are field flipping, incredibly long punts. A 70-yard punt would be like super good for the average punter in a year, in my opinion. I think the average punter would be like, oh, I hit a ball 75 yards this year. That's a great high. That's like, a Tuesday for punt god. He's got a long of 86, had the longest punt in the NCAA last year, 41 punts inside the 20. That is most in the NCAA. But again, it has to be stated, not a perfect punter. Average hang time of 3.92. That was 54th in the NCAA. So this dude just bombs balls, bombs balls, incredible leg. But again, they're line drives. They're not really hanging, which is something that he is going to have to address at the next level, obviously. But again, given that he is an incredible athlete at punter, you trust that he'll be able to figure it out for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta hope that they, or at least you assume, like they do with any other player and anything else that this regime has done, that they have a plan for him. My main concern really is just the fact that you're dealing with a first-year special teams coordinator in Matthew Smiley, because Heath Farwell decided to go to Jacksonville to take the Jaguar special teams job.
Upgrade.
I guess, if you want to frame it that way.
Definitely. Sure. That's an upgrade, I think. To go from the Super Bowl contending Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, to Urban Meyer's
but Smiley's been around for a while, but this is his first year running the show, so to speak.
Yeah. And so you just kind of wonder, like, there's a lot of things that a special team coordinator has to do, and people don't necessarily realize that, but they do. Obviously you have to develop your own scheme and how you do coverages, how you block things up, how you handle, when a shift comes your way and they're looking to block rather than just play the coverage, et cetera, et cetera. How you handle onside kicks, all that sort of stuff. But the other thing is like you have to develop these guys too, because some of these guys may have some experience on special teams, but for some of these guys, like they went through high school being the best player on their team, so they never played special teams then. And then they got into college and maybe they played special teams as a freshman, or maybe they didn't. And so it may be a while since they've played special teams and they're not used to it, or they don't, fully, or maybe they haven't like experienced special teams on a high level like the NFL does. And so you gotta coach up all these guys. And I think, and that's just involving like the coverage and protection types of stuff. That doesn't even involve like all the mechanics of kicking and holding and long snapping and all that. And God bless the fact that the Bills have a legitimate Pro Bowl kicker and a legitimate long snapper, where that you don't necessarily have to worry about that part of the operation. Mm-hmm. But for a punter, like you really have to think like Matt Smiley's got his work cut out for him, not because he's not talented, not because punt god's untalented, but because he is talented, and he's got to figure out a way to harness that. And I think that's going to be an interesting thing to watch. And it might be might become a focus for one or maybe both of us during preseason and training camp and whatnot. So it'll be interesting to watch.
But he's left-footed, so returners can't catch them. So this is something that I brought up on the live show after the Bills drafted him. Okay, I'm not a science guy. I nearly failed earth science. Granted, I took it a year early. Little pat on the back for the kid, but earth science not a real strong suit for the kid. But when I worked for the Bills, I was told part of the reason why they claimed Corey Bojorquez is that given like the wind circulation and how the wind circulates in the stadium, it benefits left-footed punters, which is a hell of a time to draft a franchise punter when you're building a new stadium in 3 years. But again, for these next 3 years, which is when they'll have, or however long the current stadium is in use, they'll have Matt Araiza under contract, assuming he is a functional punter, which I think we all assume that he's going to be, that he will figure out these hang time, not issues, but he will figure out how to get more hang time. Yeah. So again, just it even is more beneficial, right? This dude bombs balls in a stadium in which he will be further benefited by how the world works and how weather works. Really, it was weather at the end of the day. It was Mother Nature herself that dictated that punt god will join the Buffalo Bills. So, can he hold? I guess we'll just have to wait and see if he can hold. But, okay.
Never, hold on, before we move on, never forget, and I did actually write an article during the season about Matt Hawk and holding and how important it is to hold. And one of the things I referenced in that article was Pat McAfee, when he got drafted, was asked by the Colts, like, hey, like before he got drafted, he was asked by the Colts, like, hey, so you know how to hold, right? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. He 100% lied straight to their faces about it. And Adam Vinatieri, who knew he had like a Hall of Fame projection for his career, was like, hey, so you know how to hold, right? Like after he got drafted. And he was like, listen, I'll be honest, like I've never done this before. He was like, all right, well, you're not screwing up my Hall of Fame career, so I'm gonna send you to the guy that used to hold for me in New England, who lives in like a cabin in North Carolina, and you're gonna learn how to hold. So I'm not saying that the Bills need to do something like that to Matt Araiza. I'm not saying that either, though. So, yeah.
Right, because Tyler Bass is looking at his career and thinking, I'm on a Hall of Fame trajectory here. Exactly. I'm going to send you to the best hold guy I know, Matt Hawk.
That's right.
And Matt Hawk's going to be okay. Matt Hawk's just going to show his replacement how to hold, because Matt Hawk's a team first guy. Exactly. Dwayne coming in with the science, the football science. There's a reason for that. The spin on the ball is reversed. There you have it. That is the explanation.
That totally makes sense, and I totally understand how that works now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I was also bad at science classes. So.
As football understanding God, I perfectly understand how that works. All right. Moving on to the last player I have a graphic for because I ran out of time. Christian Benford here. Cornerback out of Villanova, 6 foot, 196, 8.14 relative athletic score. Fun fact is that Villanova has a football team, which is something I found out live on air as the Buffalo Bills drafted Christian Benford. Okay, so Bills double down on corner, which makes sense. We'll get into that in a couple of minutes, their decision to double down on corner. But first, a little bit more about Christian Benford. Allowed 27 receptions on 70 targets last year. Bit of a ball hawk, okay? 33 pass breakups, 14 interceptions in his college career, 7 of those interceptions coming last season. Only allowed 2 touchdowns last year, both of which were in their game against Penn State. I watched the highlights of that game today. One was definitely a Christian Benford allowed touchdown. Jahan Dotson, one-on-one way down the field. Jahan Dotson just caught it and outran him, which, again, this is first-round receiver going up against sixth-round D2 corner or whatever, or D or D1 AA. That makes sense. That is a recipe, or that is a formula that adds up there. And then I didn't see him allow another touchdown, but PFF did, a lot or give another touchdown to him that he allowed, I guess. But so yeah, this is a developmental pick, potential special teamer. Again, good athlete, 4.53, 8.14 RAS, as I said. Brandon Beane did say that they potentially could try to get him a look at safety just to see if there's anything there, but they're probably going to start him at corner. So again, just depth at the cornerback position that this regime knows how to develop late round cornerbacks, which we've talked about at length on the show this week and in the past. I guess that's really all you can say is a potential versatile piece that they'll see where he fares better once he gets into camp. But as of right now, it looks like, number 4 cornerback on the depth chart. David, anything to add here?
Yeah, we kind of mentioned earlier about when we talked about Kaiir Elam that like his abilities in man coverage might signal a shift in how they play coverages moving forward. I think Christian Benford is another potential breadcrumb or clue that might also be the case. I always love when this regime takes late round DBs because I know that they will find a way to use them in some form or another. I mean, they've gotten enough out of Saron Neal. They've gotten stuff out of Dane Jackson. They've made Teron Johnson one of the best nickel corners in the NFL. Mm-hmm. This team just loves developing defensive backs, and they can do just amazing things with them. And I'm super looking forward to seeing what Christian Benford could do, honestly, because I mean, this is the sort of pick that makes the preseason worth watching, honestly. Because you get to see how this guy really plays and how he develops and moves things along, and that's the sort of stuff that I really love. So I'm looking forward to Christian Benford, and double dipping at corner was, I think, really necessary because of Levi Wallace's departure, Trey White's uncertainties, status uncertainty for the start of the season. I think that rolling into week 1 with like just Dane Jackson and Kaiir Elam as your like only options essentially was not the best idea. And so double dipping and getting Christian Benford, who can at least be in the system long enough. And I wouldn't be surprised if they made Joe Hayden official sometime soon or whatever, or some other veteran corner that they like, but we'll see. I think that it'll be the depth is necessary for this team at the moment, and so I really like that, and the fact that they also like him for safety is also a good sign.
It's interesting.
And I believe during the live show, we actually had a comment that asked Kevin and I, like, hey, what is this dude's RAS at safety? And it was actually pretty decently better.
Right, Garbage Al wrote it up here. 8.55 at safety.
I'm sure that they know that. If somebody in our live chat, and we love our people in our live chat, I don't want to disparage anyone in the live chat except for this Jets Nation dude who keeps trying to talk crap.
Hey, it's all love here. It's all love. AFC East,
sure.
brother. I have division pride. You know how in college football where it's like, I root for a Big 12 team. I want them to go to the college football playoff because
it's stupid.
That's who I face. I have AFC East pride. I was actually a Patriots fan for all those years. I was like, yes, represent the division. That's a joke. Okay.
Yeah, I think we got
all of my jokes go over incredibly well.
but with regard to Benford, I mean, if somebody in our chat can kind of put the pieces together, like, hey, what's this dude like at safety, athletically speaking? I'm sure the Bills also had that thought. So I'm interested in seeing what they do with this dude. And it would be kind of cool if like some of your starting players are from like Weber State and Villanova. Known football.
McDermott would love that.
Oh my god.
Isn't McDermott from that area?
McDermott is he went to school, what was it? William and Mary?
He went to William and Mary, but I think he's from Philly.
Well, he coached in Philly for a long time.
I have to look this up. I have to take this to the streets. Take this to the
we gotta
Where is he from? He's from Omaha, Nebraska. Well, FFI.
Nowhere even close.
He looks like a guy from Nebraska, though. He looks like a guy from Nebraska. That makes sense. Okay. Yeah. So, and
he went to high school. He went to high school at LaSalle in Pennsylvania. So,
well, there you have it.
There you go.
He's a Philly guy. Has that Villanova pride, conference pride. Yeah, again, interesting developmental piece, regardless or of where they try to develop him at. You know, it's a fun. Again, it will be fun to see how he develops along. If he doesn't develop, he was a round 6 pick. Whatever.
That's right.
At the very least, maybe you have a special teamer for this year. Okay, next round 6 pick, Luke Tenuta. Was not able to make a graphic for him, but if I had been able to, the fun fact would have been just look at this guy. If you've seen a picture of him, he looks like a Buffalo guy. He looks like a football player. He, great look, could be a fan favorite based off that. Who was the dude who the Bills signed? Was it Trey Adams? How long ago was Trey Adams?
That was a couple of years ago.
The offensive tackle. 2020. Who incredible combine interview. Just an incredible, honest, humble. Again, you talk about a guy who's a character fit, who understands what he needs to improve on. That's Trey Adams. But Luke Tenuta, 6'8", 319. Weird case with Luke Tenuta in regards to relative athletic score. If you do his combine numbers, he has a 4.74 relative athletic score. If you do his pro day numbers, he has a 9 relative athletic score.
Yeah.
So I don't know what was going on at the combine with Luke Tenuta, but he obviously wasn't having a great day. But again, it's a traitsy pick, round 6, 6'8", 319, probably developmental swing tackle. In the live chat, people were like, "Oh, is he a guard?" It's like, you don't want a 6'8" guard, I don't think. Like, Josh Allen's not 6'8". He's got to be able to see over the middle of the field. He doesn't need Luke Tenuta standing in his way. So, the Bills like these tall, athletic tackles. And assuming that Luke Tenuta is who he was at his pro day as an athlete, and he has a family full of athletes from what I read on Twitter today. He comes from an athletic family. You have to assume that he's a better athlete than a 4.74 RAS. So, yeah, just a developmental potential tackle here might be something, might not be.
Yeah. The truth on his athleticism probably lies somewhere in the middle, right? Because, like, Virginia Tech kind of has a reputation of being very encouraging with their pro day numbers. I'm not saying that they're a little inaccurate. People are saying it. I'm not saying it.
You would never.
Never. I would never besmirch or disparage the honor of Virginia Tech and their coaching staff. Not that I even know who their head coach is at the moment, because Justin Fuente definitely got fired, right? That's a different discussion for another time. But I do think that I don't think he's the difference between like 9 and 4, 7, whatever, for your athletic testing is a lot,
It
and
is a lot.
it again, it's probably just somewhere in the middle. I don't think it's quite as bad as.
Could it be a 6.9 potentially?
Hey, it might
That'd be nice.
It would
I'm gonna
be nice.
say Luke Tenuta's RAS is actually 6.9. It's a nice
which is a nice range.
A nice range, a nice RAS for Luke Tenuta there.
That's
Again, practice squad guy. Probably we talked about that. Kevin was reading his I don't know where he got his analysis from, but he was reading analysis about Luke Tenuta on the live show, and it was all negative. It was all just like essentially breaking down every aspect of his game and why he isn't good enough for the NFL, which again,
and maybe he isn't.
Maybe he isn't, but you're not picking a starting tackle in round 6. You're picking a 6'8", 320 developmental guy.
Yeah, this was their third 6th round pick. Like, whatever. Like, there were some people who wanted Chris Paul, the guy from Tulsa, and there were some people who were upset, like, oh, he got taken right before their 7th round pick. I was like, if they really wanted Chris Paul, they would have taken Chris Paul at some point. I don't think that they were saying they're like, we can get Luke Tenuta now because we can get Chris Paul in the 7th. It's like, no, that's not what their thought process was. Their thought process was, we don't really care about Chris Paul. Like, I'm sorry, but that's just true. Based on what they decided to do. I mean, and that is what it is. It's I think that this is just, a camp body and somebody that they wanted to at least see what they could do with him, given his athletic ability and his size. And, it is what it is. I'm not like super passionate either way about.
Well, I think you should be.
Well,
have you seen the man? Again, you already said you saw the man. How can you not see him and be fired up?
His hair length and his overall aesthetic and how it fits with Bill's Mafia is on point. It has nothing to do with how I think he's going to perform as a player, though.
Well, that's what I love about the Bills' offensive line is, look, Spencer Brown, Tommy Doyle, and now Luke Tenuta are all just like Bill's Mafia members that you took into Photoshop and you made the picture bigger. That's all of them, and it's great. I love that they're building an offensive line out of potential Bills fans, because I've always said, they'd be great body. I saw a tweet one time where it was like, if Rob Gronkowski were 4 inches shorter, he would be a bouncer at a Buffalo bar, which is just, incredible. And, if you get an offensive line out of just Buffalo guys, that's what you need. You're going to succeed.
Yeah.
But I don't know if Luke Tenuta is going to be anything as a player. Dwayne wants us to go back to Benford, about him as a safety potentially.
Well, hold on. So is he? Why? Hold on. So went back to this player because there were main reasons why he played well at safety. Did he play at safety when he was at Villanova?
I watched a lot of his games. Benford screwed up at cornerback way too often watching the play develop. That's why he would be a great safety.
Okay.
Well, that's
okay. It sounds like you did your own analysis, Dwayne. Why do you want us to go back to it? No.
No. It has to be reiterated that Brandon Beane did say they're going to look at him at corner, but safety is a possibility. And again, they didn't directly take a safety in this class, which a lot of people thought they were going to, given Jordan Poyer as his contract situation. So a lot of people, I saw some mocks with Daxton Hill in the first, just replace Jordan Poyer right now, which was always kind of silly. But I think that I like DeMar Hamlin a lot more than a lot of people do. I think DeMar Hamlin is going to be a starting safety for the Bills. Not soon necessarily, but I think at some point he's going to replace one of the two. And if Benford develops, awesome. But we're talking about a Villanova DB here. He had snaps at safety. Garbage Al writes, I don't think so. We got a fight in the chat. This is a hoedown throwdown right here. The people are going crazy for Christian Benford. I'm just gonna wrap up the draft picks here. Round 7, pick 10, 231 overall. Baylon Spector out of Clemson. The fun fact, had I made a graphic for this one, would have been Spector. I hardly know her. And the crowd would have went wild. The crowd would have loved the joke. Everyone would have liked the video and subscribed to the Cover One YouTube
Which
channel.
They should do anyway, people, all 133 of you that are watching. I think that y'all should be hitting that like button because we love you and we love having you here. And we want you to reciprocate that love to us through internet points. So hit that like button. It actually is very helpful.
Social credit, baby.
It does help our videos. It helps their channel. And we know that you all love helping Cover One because you wouldn't be here if you didn't. So hit that like button. Share it if you wanna. We appreciate it. Anyway, moving on. Baylon Spector.
He's 6 foot, 233. He's a former safety. Is Tremaine Edmonds' replacement, David?
I mean, if you want to put Tremaine Edmonds at edge and you want to put Baylon Spector at edge.
Baylon Spector.
That is true,
name.
right? Can we talk about that?
Come on.
That does sound like a superhero name.
Baylon Spector. Give me a break. What are you hiding? He's hiding something. This is a witness protection program guy who went too creative with the name. Baylon Spector. It's a great name. It really is. Don't know if he's going to be a great player, maybe a special teamer, but look, everyone said before the draft, I don't know if they're making 8 picks because I don't know if they have 8 roster spots.
Right.
They made 8 picks. And I don't know if there's a roster spot for Baylon Spector. He's competition for Tyrell Dodson and Andre Smith in terms of special teams ability. And Dodson's been a good special teamer for them, and as has Andre Smith. So really, I don't think Joe Giles Harris is making the roster either. So he's competition for that range of player. Again, athlete, former safety. They like their safeties converted to linebacker. Look what they did with Milano. Milano's developed into a very good linebacker. I don't know if Spector is that type of player, but round 7, you take a swing on a safety turn linebacker if the formula has worked for you before. Worst case scenario, you have a practice squad guy.
Yeah. This is a very typical, like, all right, we got somebody compete on special teams. Maybe he could develop into a halfway decent depth player, and that's honestly about as much as you can ask for from a 7th round pick. And he kind of fits, like you said, he former safety turned to linebacker. They love that from the ACC. They love ACC players. This fits. This sort of ticks the boxes for a lot of what they like to look for. It wasn't a super surprising or to be honest, all that interesting of a pick. He's somebody that's going to compete. That's what they want to look for. That's what they always look for. That pretty much wraps it up.
You don't want to talk about Jalen Weidermeyer?
Do we want to talk about the UDFA class for a bit?
Just
a couple of guys. Want to touch on that?
I think I've read like 10 that have agreed to sign 3 wide receivers, which given how loaded this wide receiver room is already that we talked about earlier, the fact that 3 wide receivers chose to sign here is kind of shocking. Keith Corbin III out of Jackson State, Malik Williams out of App State, and Neil PAU' from BYU. Thank you, Dwayne.
We appreciate having to talk football with you too. We love having all our fans bring their knowledge, their takes. We love it. Even if we mostly me give you shit about it.
Right. I just am like, yeah, I agree.
Kyle just wants to like do his thing, and I'm here like I want to start trouble.
I am the most non-confrontational person in the world. I was at a bar one time, and my friend was this is
getting frisky, getting a little fiery.
Well, my friend doesn't go to downtown Buffalo a lot, so he was in. We were in a bar, and this guy or my friend was talking shit to a bouncer or to not a bodyguard. I was at Good Bar, so it's not, a high class establishment by any means. But my friend's talking shit to this dude, and that he didn't see who was talking shit. So he's like, "Who's talking shit? Glasses?" And he's referring to me. So, you'd think most people would just be like, yeah, or just walk away. I walk up to the dude and I'm just like, what? Like, oh no, I'm not trying to fight. I don't know what's going on. I'm socially inept and I am not confrontational. So there we go. There's my story. So Jalen Weidermeyer, probably the more or the most interesting athlete coming out of not an athlete, very much not an athlete. Had a one RAS, maybe the most notable name with this undrafted free agent class. Had a top 30 visit with the Bills, so it makes sense. They obviously had some interest in him, bring him in as a UDFA. Again, he has name value, name recognition, but given his poor combine, obviously combine doesn't equal NFL success. There are numerous instances of that being the case, but as Kevin was writing in the Cover One Premium Slack earlier, in terms of RAS, there is a pretty good correlation between RAS and success of a tight end, at least according to what Kevin was saying. And Jalen Weidermeyer's RAS is a 1. So that's not like it's not. I don't know if we should necessarily have high hopes for Jalen Weidermeyer. It's going to be a fun camp story, but I don't think you should be including him on your 53-man projections right now.
Yeah, I agree. He was somebody that, kind of got some run up into the draft. Obviously, that was more of a media thing than an NFL thing because the NFL said, nah, we're good. But it's interesting. And we've talked about, since they didn't draft any tight ends and the only, there's really nobody set to be on this roster beyond 2022, right? Like Dawson Knox has his contract expiring, Tommy Sweeney as well, and OJ Howard was a 1-year deal. There's no one officially on this roster until they make an extension on somebody, presumably Dawson Knox, and hopefully that gets done sooner or later. But we talked about how tight end is a developmental future need for this team. And I'm not saying that Weidermeyer is for sure the answer, but he was also a top 30 visit for this team as well. So they definitely like what they saw on tape, at least, where this was somebody that they wanted to bring in. And I think that there is potentially a path for him, maybe if not to make it on the roster, but probably definitely the practice squad. I mean, I think that this is somebody that they have some real interest in developing for the future. That's what I'll be interested in watching. Outside of that, there really wasn't too much that was super interesting. A couple of offensive linemen, some running back, corner, just about what you'd expect, except
Blackshear from Virginia Tech.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. That's all I got.
Correct me if I'm wrong, David and chat, but weren't there like questions about Weidermeyer, like character wise, like love of the game? Weren't people questioning his effort and stuff like that? So maybe that's part of the reason why, one, the combine was so poor, and two, why they brought him in on a top 30 visit, because bringing in a potential UDFA on a top 30 visit is, you could argue, a waste of a top 30 visit. But obviously it's not a waste in this case because they ultimately signed the guy. But maybe that was part of it. Maybe they just looked at the combine performance and stuff like that, and they were like, that's not adding up with what we're seeing on tape here. So let's get him in here and see who he is as a person. Because, again, being on McAfee today, talked about the value of those top 30 visits and how these guys put on, not facades, but they act like they've been taught, like they've been educated and taught to act in front of Bean McDermott, but they've put
been
them
coached
around
up in their interviews.
Right. So what the Bills do, and probably what a lot of teams do because it's smart, is they put these guys around a lot of different guys who have a lot of different jobs within the organization, and then they get feedback from everyone like, hey, Weidermeyer, or not Weidermeyer, but this player was great with me, but how was he with the equipment manager or with, or with the guy who picked him up from the airport?
Right. And all that matters. It's all different parts and pieces of the formula. You have the scout who meets with him and sees him during the season. He has his view of him. He gets to the combine, and somebody else on the team is going to have their view of him. And then they bring him in for a visit. And like, all right, well, how did he talk with you? Well, how did he visit with you? How did he, work things with you? And if you have conflicting reports, then that's a problem. I mean, that's always going to be a problem if you have conflicting reports. So I think it's going to be, he's just somebody to watch. He's somebody to have an eye on for the rest of the offseason into training camp, and especially in the preseason. So we will see. And I believe we are now officially wrapped up as we've
Not
now
so fast. Dwayne writes, I'm now interested if Cover One thinks we good at punt kickoff returns. I'm not sold on Isaiah McKenzie as a returner. I don't know if the Bills are sold on Isaiah McKenzie as a returner. They gave him a 2-year deal, but I think that's more so because they got rid of Cole Beasley, but then they also just signed Jamison Crowder. So who knows what that 2-year deal is going to, see McKenzie do. They also have Marquez Stevenson, who similar returner to Isaiah McKenzie in terms of strengths and weaknesses. And then you get a guy like Khalil Shakir, who can also return. So I'm intrigued by that competition. I think those are the 3 names to look out for in that competition, because it's going to be a competition. And it's a competition that I think Stevenson has to win to make the roster. I think Shakir can lose the return job and not get cut, but McKenzie can lose the return job and not get cut. Stevenson cannot make the roster as a wide receiver, I don't think, unless he's taken massive strides this offseason.
Sure.
I don't think he has a path to the roster outside of returner. So for him, it's win the return job, or else he's practice squad or off the roster entirely, which I think, given his age and speed, a team would take a shot on him. Sure. I don't necessarily think he'd make it to the practice squad, but yeah, I'm, at least as of right now, I'm okay with the competition of Shakir, McKenzie, and Stevenson. If I had to say who do I think is going to be returning kicks and punts week 1, I'd probably say Shakir. But James Cook can do returning. I think James Cook is going to have a pretty big role in the offense, so I don't necessarily see them putting him out as a returner.
I would be surprised if they let a rookie week 1 be the starting return guy. I think at some point in the season, they'll probably make the switch to Shakir, presumably because he's more stable and secure as a returner and just more reliable. But I think that they will start with McKenzie for the season, and they will roll with him until they give him a reason not to.
Yeah. Which they keep him on a short leash in the return game.
There
were games where he just kind of muffed a punt and got it back, and then they were immediately hides out there. Which again, McKenzie has had a few mishaps on special teams. I hope for Shakir's sake. I understand what you're saying about they might not want to throw a rookie out there week 1 to return. But again, I hope for his sake he wins it, so he does work his way into a game day active spot, which could give him more opportunities offensively, which is fun for all of us. I think that wraps it up for all of us here in this Cover One Roundup 2022 NFL Draft Buffalo Bills recap. That was kind of disjointed, but you know what I'm saying. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to stick around for the Air Raid Hour. That's on pretty soon. Make sure to subscribe to the Cover One YouTube channel, to the Cover One podcast feeds on iTunes. Leave reviews if you feel so inclined. I don't know if that's a phrase. I think there's a version of that is a phrase, but I just didn't piece the words together. We're an hour and 33 minutes deep. I'm just kind of running on fumes here. Make sure to subscribe to Cover One Premium if you're interested. There you will have access to the Cover One Premium Slack, where you can talk to myself, David, Greg, Aaron, Kevin, all your favorite Cover One personalities. I'm not included in that, but you can talk to us. We're all over there talking about the Bills, just general stuff. Great conversations always going on over there. Make sure to follow Cover One on all social media, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. We're on Twitch now.
Yes.
Maybe some gaming stuff. I'd love to do some gaming stuff.
We might have to talk about that as like an off-season thing.
I would love it.
Fill some off-season content on the Twitch channel.
I would genuinely love to play as Dick Duran in NFL Head Coach 09. Like, I made the joke, but I would love to. You start in the off season. It's the Matt Ryan. Is it the Matt Ryan draft? No, it's the Joe Flacco draft.
That's the same draft.
It's the Matt Ryan draft. I just know it as the Dennis Dixon draft, okay? Because that's the quarterback that you can turn into a franchise guy. I think CJ2K's in that draft as well. NFL head coach is electric. And it might be coming to the Twitch channel. Make sure to follow David on Twitter at
DFAUXY at DFoxy.
You can follow. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm trying to get us out. Trying to take us home. You can follow me on Twitter at Kyle Silagyi. Thank you so much for watching. We will talk to you next week. Bye bye.